This is the story of one of the most enduring and intriguing mysteries of the Second World War, a story that has haunted historians, treasure hunters, and governments for more than 7 decades. The story of Adolf Hitler's missing millions. Hitler, the dictator whose name has become synonymous with evil, was not just obsessed with power. He was also obsessed with wealth, money, and the careful accumulation of assets. Unlike his public image, which projected austerity and total devotion to the German people, the private Hitler had a far more complex financial life. When he died in April 1945, the world assumed that all of his wealth was either destroyed in the chaos of Berlin or confiscated by the Allies. But as history has shown, the truth is far more complicated. Hidden accounts, secret properties, and priceless art collections remained, scattered across Europe, waiting to be discovered. The hunt for Hitler's hidden fortune began in the ruins of the Third Reich. Allied forces combed through bombed-out cities, abandoned bunkers, and the estates of top Nazi officials. Every lead promised riches, but most ended in dead ends, confusion, or vanished into secrecy. Yet some treasures did surface, hinting at the incredible scale of Hitler's hidden empire. This is not just a story about stolen art or secret bank accounts. It is the story of how a man, in the final days of a collapsing empire, attempted to control his legacy, safeguard his wealth, and influence the world even after his death. Some of it has been found, some of it remains hidden, and some of it, as we will see, continues to generate wealth in ways that most people would never imagine. By the end of this story, we will know not just how Hitler amassed his fortune, but how that fortune continues to affect the world today. Adolf Hitler's rise to power was not only political, it was financial. From the very beginning of his career in the Nazi Party, he had a keen eye for opportunities to enrich himself. In the 1920s, before he ever held public office, Hitler realized the value of his own image. People were drawn to him, captivated by his speeches and the charisma he projected. He began charging fees for speaking engagements, claiming publicly that he took no payment, but secretly, he was collecting money. Hitler's early fortune. Then came Mein Kampf, written during his imprisonment in 1923. The book was far more than a political manifesto. It became a cash machine. Hitler received royalties for each copy sold, initially modest, but as the book gained popularity, the sums grew exponentially. By the time the Nazis came to power in 1933, the state itself began distributing the book, ensuring that every newlywed couple in Germany received a copy. This decree wasn't just propaganda, it was an incredible financial coup. Hitler's royalties from Mein Kampf alone earned him millions in Reichsmarks, allowing him to fund properties, purchase luxury items, and quietly build a financial empire. Yet Hitler's wealth was not limited to book royalties. He began investing in property, carefully acquiring homes in Germany and Austria. His first significant purchase was a modest house in the Alpine village of Berchtesgaden. Over the years, this property was expanded and transformed into the Berghof, a luxurious mountain retreat filled with fine art, Persian carpets, and exquisite furniture. Hitler personally oversaw many renovations, demonstrating not just his desire for comfort, but his obsession with controlling his image and surroundings. By the late 1930s, Hitler's finances were sprawling, from cash to real estate, from art collections to luxury vehicles. His fortune was already substantial, but cleverly concealed. On the surface, his wealth seemed modest. His public persona insisted he lived simply. But behind closed doors, Hitler's empire was growing, quietly and meticulously, as Europe edged toward war. This early accumulation of wealth set the stage for what would come next. With the outbreak of World War II, Hitler's access to funds expanded dramatically, and with it, the complexity of his financial empire grew. Every move he made had not only political implications, but financial ones. And when the Third Reich began to collapse in 1945, the question remained, where was all this wealth hiding? Hidden treasures and secret wealth. As the Third Reich expanded across Europe, Hitler's financial ambitions grew alongside his political power. While the world focused on his military campaigns, Hitler was quietly building an empire of wealth, much of it hidden from public view. One of the most significant parts of this hidden fortune was art. Hitler was obsessed with collecting and controlling Europe's finest artworks. While other Nazis looted for personal gain or political leverage, Hitler often paid for the pieces he wanted, creating a personal collection that became the foundation of what he envisioned as the world's greatest museum. By the end of the war, he had amassed approximately 8,500 paintings. These included Dutch, Italian, and German masterpieces, many of which are worth millions of dollars today. But art was just one part of the puzzle. Hitler also accumulated substantial cash reserves, secretly stored across Europe and Switzerland. Intelligence reports reveal that even as the war raged, he maintained Swiss bank accounts containing tens of millions of Reichsmarks, including foreign royalties from Mein Kampf. These accounts were managed by his trusted financial advisor, Maximilian Amann, who handled everything from royalties to clandestine investments, ensuring that Hitler could access cash whenever needed. Properties formed another critical element of Hitler's hidden empire. Beyond the Berghof, he acquired apartments in Munich, villas for personal staff, and estates near the Austrian border. Some of these properties were modest in appearance, meant to project an image of simplicity. Others were palaces in disguise, filled with luxury, fine furnishings, and personal touches that reflected Hitler's obsessive attention to detail. Yet the most remarkable aspect of Hitler's wealth was how hidden it remained. When Allied forces stormed Berlin in April 1945, they found the Führer bunker in ruins, but there was no trace of his vast financial empire. Documents disappeared, safe deposits were emptied, and properties were abandoned. It was as if the man who had dominated Europe had vanished, leaving only whispers of his fortune.
Some of these secrets would resurface years later. In Austria, in a tiny village called Altaussee, Nazi miners had hidden thousands of artworks in salt mines. These included both looted treasures and pieces Hitler had personally purchased. When the Monuments Men, the Allied unit tasked with recovering stolen art, arrived after the war, they were stunned to find works worth nearly £1 billion hidden deep inside the mountains. The miners themselves had preserved these treasures, often resisting Nazi orders to destroy them. Even after the war, evidence emerged of bank accounts, cash reserves, and royalty streams that continued to generate wealth long after Hitler's death. The true extent of this hidden empire remains unknown. Some of it was legally claimed by surviving relatives. Some vanished into the shadows of international banking, and some may still lie undiscovered, waiting for the next chapter in the hunt for Hitler's missing millions. Hitler's last will and the official estate. April 1945. Berlin is in ruins. The Russian army is closing in. Inside the Führer bunker, Adolf Hitler faces the final hours of his life. In these last moments, he turns his mind not only to ideology and politics, but to the question of his personal legacy. On April 29th, just hours before his suicide, Hitler marries Eva Braun. After a glass of champagne, he begins dictating his last will and testament, a document that would become one of the most important and closely scrutinized papers of the 20th century. For Hitler, it was not only a political declaration, but also a way to control his private affairs, to distribute his possessions, and, perhaps, to create a narrative about his own life and wealth. Hitler's will is divided into two parts. The first is a political testament, a virulent tirade against Jews, a justification for his actions, and the appointment of successors to carry on the Third Reich. But it is the second part, his personal will, that offers a glimpse into the financial mind of the dictator. On the surface, the will portrays Hitler as a man of modest means. He leaves small amounts of money and possessions to family members, his sister Paula, a half-sister, a half-brother, and his housekeeper. He paints a picture of austerity, suggesting he lived solely for the German people, that he had no significant personal wealth. Yet there is a subtle clue in the will that hints at a far larger fortune. Hitler designates Maximilian Amann, his private secretary, as the sole executor of his estate, granting him full authority to manage bequests and finances. This delegation is not just administrative, it suggests that substantial assets exist, hidden away, to be distributed or protected according to Hitler's instructions. When Allied forces discovered the Führer bunker, they found no treasure, no sign of wealth. Hitler's art collection was gone. His properties were abandoned. Martin Bormann, the man with authority over his fortune, had disappeared and would later be found dead under mysterious circumstances. In 1948, after years of uncertainty, a special Allied court officially declared Hitler dead and issued a financial valuation of his estate. Shockingly, it was listed at just 200,000 Reichsmarks, roughly $15,000 at the time, equivalent to about $500,000 today. By all accounts, it seemed almost negligible, especially compared to what historians later discovered Hitler had amassed. The true extent of this hidden empire remains unknown. Some of it was legally claimed by surviving relatives, some vanished into the shadows of international banking, and some may still lie undiscovered, waiting for the next chapter in the hunt for Hitler's missing millions. Recovering the art and properties. While Hitler's official estate seemed modest, the real treasures were hidden across Europe, carefully protected or disguised. One of the most extraordinary discoveries came from Austria, in the small village of Altaussee, nestled in the Salzkammergut Mountains. Here, Nazi miners had hidden thousands of artworks in salt mines. These included both looted treasures and pieces Hitler had personally purchased. The choice of a salt mine was strategic. The stable, dry environment preserved paintings for decades, and the vast network of tunnels provided a natural fortress. Deep inside the mine, works of art were stacked on wooden shelves, meticulously catalogued and stored. The miners themselves played a crucial role in saving these treasures. In many cases, they resisted orders from Nazi officials to destroy the artworks, ensuring that future generations would witness the scale of Hitler's collection. When the Monuments Men, the Allied unit tasked with recovering stolen art, arrived after the war, they were astonished to find hundreds of paintings, each carefully preserved, worth nearly £1 billion in today's terms. Among the collection were works by Dutch masters, Italian Renaissance painters, and German artists, an eclectic mix reflecting Hitler's personal tastes. Beyond art, Hitler's properties became a focus of post-war investigations. The Berghof, his mountain retreat, was looted and largely destroyed by Allied forces, but documents and architectural plans survived, revealing the incredible sums Hitler spent on renovations and acquisitions. His apartments in Munich, villas near the Austrian border, and even the modest Berchtesgaden house all held clues to his wealth. Hitler's obsession with secrecy extended to cash as well. Intelligence reports later revealed that he maintained Swiss bank accounts holding tens of millions of Reichsmarks, including royalties from Mein Kampf. These accounts were managed by Maximilian Amann, Hitler's financial advisor, who personally ensured that Hitler had access to funds regardless of the war's outcome. Amann's death in 1957 meant that many of these financial secrets died with him, leaving investigators to piece together a puzzle without all the pieces.
The recovery efforts revealed an extraordinary fact.
Hitler's wealth had been carefully compartmentalized. Some assets were in art, some in real estate, some in cash, and some in intellectual property. While the Allies recovered what they could, vast sums remained untraceable, either hidden in foreign banks, lost to bureaucracy, or perhaps still lying undiscovered. The story of Altaussee and the properties paints a picture of Hitler not just as a dictator, but as a man with a profound obsession for wealth, control, and legacy. Every property, every painting, every secret account was part of a meticulous strategy to preserve his fortune even as his empire crumbled around him. Even decades after Hitler's death, the search for his hidden wealth continues. Swiss bank accounts, dormant for more than 60 years, may have quietly passed to the state, while other funds may still be claimed by distant relatives or legal heirs. His intellectual property, too, continues to generate money. Copyrights on Mein Kampf and the licensing of Hitler's image have created a steady income stream, sometimes millions of dollars, even 70 years after his death. Auctioned memorabilia, rare first editions of his book, and luxury vehicles once owned by Hitler continue to fetch astronomical prices. The truth is, no one will ever know exactly how much Hitler was worth when he died. His will, carefully crafted, portrayed a man of modest means, while the reality was far more complex. Hidden art collections, secret bank accounts, and a carefully managed empire of assets. The hunt for Hitler's missing millions is more than a story of money. It's a story of secrecy, power, and obsession. Even today, it reminds the world that the legacy of a dictator extends far beyond politics and war, leaving trails that continue to fascinate, baffle, and intrigue generations.